The Atelier series is one of the longest-running JRPG franchises with a total of 18 major entries in over 20 years across a plethora of platforms. I had only played one previous Atelier game, and I already feel as if maybe the series isn't changing enough with each new iteration. I thought the game was very similar to the last game I played. I played it about a month ago on Vita, and there's already another one out, which is just crazy. I think they're all ports, and there's a lot of like remakes and stuff, which is fine. I'm not against remakes or ports. It seems like they're cranking these things out really fast, and it kind of shows because there's not much new brought to the table overall. So if I'm being honest, alchemy in most games never appeals to me, and this game focuses heavily on that. So that was kind of a turnoff from the beginning. I'm not really into that stuff like when I play games like The Witcher and stuff like that. Like, I don't ever get into the Alchemist stuff. It's just not very fun to me. What's cool is the game is cross-save with the PlayStation Vita version, so if you want to buy both, you can do that. I got both for review, and I used it a couple times, but I preferred to play on PS4 because the Vita version just doesn't look or run nearly as good as the PS4 version. And that's kind of unfortunate because the last game that I reviewed, the Atelier Sophie, it ran pretty well on the Vita. I actually played most on the Vita, and I enjoy playing games like this on the Vita because they're time sinkers. You have to have a lot of time invested into a JRPG, as you probably know. So if you're not a huge fan of the series, I wouldn't bother buying both versions, but if you are, then why not? So a lot of this stuff I'm going to say might sound kind of typical, but I figured I'd just throw it out there. The characters in the game are very enjoyable. They all have a nice spunk and personality to them, which is always fun in JRPGs. Just seeing more of the character interactions is always more of a reason just to keep playing the game. There is actually English VO in the game, which surprised me because when games like this come out, they usually only have the Japanese with some dialogue in English, but this game has both, and that's what's cool. You can choose between the English VO, or if you're like a diehard Japanese fan, you can listen to the Japanese VO and read the subtitles. One thing I found pretty cool, and once again, I'm just now jumping into the series, I've only played one previous game, is that there is mentions of other characters and other areas in the game to previous games, which I thought was awesome. I actually saw some characters pop up that were in a previous game, which I really liked. While I haven't fully completed the game, the story so far is pretty interesting. Some of the character quests are more interesting than others. You get nice little mini stories, but overall, I didn't find it as interesting as the Alchemist of the Dusk Sea, the game that I had previously played. Some stuff that I didn't like about the game was that sometimes they give you like a time limit to complete stuff, which apparently comes from earlier games in the series, and they brought it back in this one, but I didn't really like that. I don't like being timed when I'm doing stuff like this. It's kind of always bothered me in games, like even like Majora's Mask, I didn't like having a time limit in that game. It's just, I get too antsy and I get frustrated, and I've never liked timers. But if you like timers, that's cool with me. It might make the game more intense for you. Some of the characters aren't especially great. A lot of them are bland. I think I mentioned this before, but like the game is just kind of ugly on PS4. For like a console game, there's like muddy textures and bland environments. Just seems like they kind of just rushed the game and made it as good as they thought it needed to be, and then they released it. Like I said about the Vita version, it looks passable for a handheld game, but it runs really bad. The frame rate's pretty rough, and there's bad pop-in. And unfortunately with this game, the combat feels more of like an afterthought. While it seems like the combat was never really a focus overall, it feels like in this game it's a step back in that department. The battles feature like the typical turn-based combat system, and it just seems like too many JRPGs offer the same exact gameplay over and over, and a lot of people like that gameplay hook, but for me it just wasn't enough. So with this game, I enjoyed certain parts of it. It's not as good as the previous game in the series that I played, but if you enjoy the series, this is a game you might want to pick up. Like I said, if you pick it up on both Vita and PS4, it's cross-save, but that'll run you at about $100, so it's up to you. Hope you enjoyed this little like analysis. I like to just give my thoughts on games like these that I know I'm not going to complete, but I just want to put my thoughts out there for you guys to take in, and hopefully you enjoy it too. Leave a comment if you enjoyed this review, this off-the-cuff review type style I've been doing with some reviews. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.